Hello, this is a video about how and why I used YouTube videos in my teaching this past year, and some suggestions for how and why you might want to try it out yourself. So there are three reasons why I thought using video was helpful, and the first was just to capitalize on the sheer amount of recorded online lectures that are now available as the result of the pandemic. I know people have very mixed responses to Zoom conferences, but one of the advantages of them is they have left us with this huge body of recorded work to draw on in our teaching. The second thing was I felt that using video in my teaching might help me to cater to different student learning styles and accessibility needs for students who are stronger at auditory processing, who are going to respond better to hearing academic content rather than reading it. I thought this might be an interesting way to reach and engage with them. And thirdly, I think that engaging with academic video can help students become aware of the norms of academic culture in terms of, first of all, seeing that research is work in progress, and second of all, understanding that they can question, challenge, or expand aspects of the scholarship they encounter. So I used video in my teaching largely through a platform called Talus Elevate, which is a tool for active and collaborative engagement with specific learning resources. At the University of Lincoln, we use Blackboard as our virtual learning environment, and Talus Elevate is integrated within that platform. So Elevate is a tool where students can use social annotation. They can leave specific comments, specific annotations on images, text, and videos, and they can also respond to each other's annotations. They can either reply to a comment or they can like it. So it's a really powerful tool for engaging with academic content, but I'll also talk as we go on about ways that you can apply some of the things that I've done to video in your teaching if you don't have access to this platform or something like it. So I'm going to give two examples from my teaching. One is from a module on ancient graffiti, which I taught to third year, final year students in our BA in Classical Studies. And then I'm going to talk about using video in a second year module on women in ancient Rome. So starting out with the graffiti course, I was really excited to discover that Rebecca Benefiel, who is one of the leaders of the Ancient Graffiti Project, a digital resource for studying handwritten Roman inscriptions, had given a long lecture at the University of Houston where she talked about the creation of that database and the digital humanities. And because graffiti studies are such a developing field, I really wanted to give students a sense of the dynamism of the field, and I thought that engaging with video lectures would be a really cool way to do this. So in Talus Elevate, you can leave personal notes. Those are notes that only you can see, or you can leave class comments, which everyone who has access to the module site, the course site, can see. So what I did when I was preparing for teaching is I went through and I left little personal notes. All of the comments in a video are associated with the timestamp of a particular moment of the video, so it's very easy for me to make these little clips that I could go back and discuss with my students. And I was really pleased to see that students, you can see the vertical lines along the bottom are where my students have left comments, and I was really pleased to see that they had engaged pretty much throughout the video. So when I dug deeper into the analytics, which is one of the features that Talus Elevate provides, it was interesting to see that a fairly high percentage of students, 65% of the class, had engaged with the video, but it was very much kind of mixed how far they had gotten. Most students had gotten about halfway through the video, and I can see that quite clearly. There's a very sort of steep decline as we get kind of towards the final minutes of the video, which is even more apparent if we look at the individual breakdown of what students are doing. You can see that they haven't made it all the way through the entire lecture, though they've gotten through a really good amount of the content. So I was really glad that I had used the personal notes as a way to flag particular moments of the video for discussion. And this is definitely something you could do even if you don't have access to Telesolvate or a platform like it, either by creating little clips in YouTube or by simply noting down the approximate timestamp of a particular moment that you want to discuss in your class. So my second example is from a second-year module on women in ancient Rome, which had students from across the humanities in the classroom. So unlike the graffiti module, which was mostly classics students and history students, so students with a relatively high level of experience working with content on the past, this course had students from across the humanities, so primarily history and classics, but also students from some of our other humanities courses. So I was really thinking of ways to kind of engage with this sort of diverse learning community. And one of the things I wanted to do was try out using videos. So Ray Lawrence is an ancient historian, and he created this video in conjunction with TED. So unlike a recording of an academic seminar, this is a professionally produced video by a really big educational company. And as you can see, just from looking at the lines across the bottom where students have commented, this video provoked really excellent engagement. Students are leaving comments all the way throughout, and they are making lengthy comments and also kind of responding to each other and liking each other's comments, which I was really pleased to see. And it was really interesting turning to the analytics and looking at what students were actually doing, because you can see that about the same percentage of students, so about 67%, so a really good percentage of the class have engaged with this video. But really interesting the amount of time they've spent. Most students have watched the video at least 1.5 times, and a pretty significant portion of people have made it all the way to the end. And when we look at the individual student engagement, it's clear that there's a number of people who had watched the video multiple times. Many of them were actually watching to the length of a seminar paper or an academic video, so 20 minutes or more, which suggests to me, as I think about how I want to develop my teaching using video in the future, that there is a place for longer video in teaching. And I would suggest this to you also, that you shouldn't feel that students have short attention spans and you have to focus on video that's going to be 10 minutes or less, otherwise they won't do anything. I think there are ways, for example, by finding and using video that's been professionally produced, or by doing what I did in kind of creating the sort of clips to go back to in seminar discussion. I think there are strategies you can use to be successful with longer video in your classroom. So I'm going to conclude with some recommendations and further thoughts. I think that in terms of finding video, it's pretty much a no-brainer. If you think about scholars and research groups or seminar series that you've spoken in, that you admire, people whose work you're reading as you're preparing your module or your course, then going on YouTube and looking to see if those groups or those people have recorded papers over the past 2 years can be a great way to engage your students with cutting-edge research. And I really recommend building clips into discussion questions for your seminars and into your lesson plans. I think being sort of specific in the ways that you engage with video can really help you to use it successfully. And I think that finally, to wrap things up, there's maybe a broader purpose to using video in our classrooms, in that for the vast majority of us at many universities across the world, our students won't have access to the journal articles and books we use to teach them, that we ask them to use to do research after they leave university. Many of them will choose to go on and do other things related to the past. They won't stay in academia. So I think we need to teach our students to be critical and thoughtful producers of and audiences of information, and we need to think about the types of information that they and their families of friends are going to have access to. And so potentially using video can be a really great way to meet that purpose as well. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful and thought-provoking.